7, the eyes. The main thing to know about the eyes is that they literally take place on a sphere. So everything that happens in relationship to the eye structure has to do with this sphere, but then it's a sphere that sits inside of a cavity, and that cavity is the shelf that we've been building, and it's kind of a square hole, about like that, and it comes in this instance on a tilt like this, but it's a square, and this guy sits inside of there. So because it's a cavity, notice the darkness that will be happening inside of there. And this part would be shaded by the darkness. You see this darkness? And this part here will be shaded based on that darkness. And it comes down that way, actually, until you hit the bridge of the nose about there. Presuming a little light on top of it. The light is coming from the top. Okay, so that describes the underlying forms of the eye. And then what we need to understand past that are the skin forms. So you'll have the eyeball, and we'll think of it in profile first. And it has a flap. It's like a Pac-Man. See this kind of Pac-Man shape? And it's like this. You have eyelashes and eyelashes. And notice the thickness, so that when in light, the light will you'll usually see a little bit of light sitting on this right here and catching right in here, and maybe perhaps sitting up there. And a lot of times you'll get a really beautiful shadow through here, and then down below the eye like this, that falls into shadow. And then there's a change of plane right there, which could bring light back like this. Okay, and then when you look at it from straight on, it looks like this, with the skin that we have to deal with. So one of the things that that is really cool is that the eye very frequently, as this piece of skin runs over the eye, a lot of times towards the inside, it's a little higher, and over this way, towards the outside, it's a little lower, and so it kind of takes on this shape like this a little bit. So here's my bottom eyelid, there's my upper eyelid. You want to take every opportunity you can to demonstrate the thickness of them. And here's where the eyelid hits right inside. And then there's a piece of flesh that sits here, and another shadow comes in here. Notice the shading underneath the lid, the way that the lid throws a shadow onto the eyeball. Notice the shading underneath the eyeball. Very frequently catch shadow there. A little bit of highlight happening in there. And it could be that the eyelash catches a little light right in there. And again, this piece of skin and over here, it's all the cavity, this bone. It's like this great cavity in here, and it's the recess makes this really nice darkness coming across this part of your eyelid. It's a little tear duct in there. And depending on how tired a person is, how old they are, there can be another piece of flesh right in here, sitting underneath the eye. Okay, so I'm going to quickly draw a couple of versions of that into our heads. And end here. Okay, here's the eye socket. And in here are the eyeballs. The pupil. Pupil. Bending downwards, down and out and around, down, out, up towards the center, eyelids, eyelid, the shadow that comes so nicely in through here. flap of skin out here, underneath, shadow, and all of this stuff is in a downward facing plane, which makes it happen in great shadow. And your eyebrow goes from here and it stretches across, and then a lot of times it'll go down. So it's darkest here, and then it's come up into the light, and then it drops down. Okay, the 3/4 view. What I mess up on the 3/4 view is I forget to go by my center lines. So I'm over constructing this right now because I kind of messed it up on the last one. I have to get better at this one. Okay, and then into the eye sockets, which sit here. Notice the angle of the eye socket, the angle of the jaw, which will be replicated over here, the angle of the zygomatic arch actually. Drop down into my chin, shooting forward, around. Because this ends here, I'm looking for that ending there. Good. The top of the eye socket as it comes downward. This side of the nose in shadow. You want these eye sockets to be really well constructed. They're worth taking some time on. Look at the way that eyeball goes out further on the profile than the socket of my eye, and all of this is in shadow. All of this is in shadow. Look at, I'm going to put the pupils in, sketching in the pupils, and now turning the eye. I like it. And this one has to be at the same level. Turning over and down. Nice. Eye ending, ending. Eyebrows. Eyebrow coming up onto the top of the forehead. Over and down. ear. Uh-oh, looks like I'm almost going to give this character some hair. And in profile, here's the eye socket, zygomatic arch, to the mouth, out to the chin, all of which we've covered now. The nose is in here, and the eyeballs are sitting right in there. Here, the bottom eyelid, piece of flesh, the top eyelid, lashes coming outward, the end of the nose in a real ball shape. Okay, guys, that's it.